The Green Bay Packers make even more coaching changes this week as we near closer and closer to finalizing this coaching staff for 2026. Over the last couple of weeks, we saw the Green Bay Packers have a huge turnover on the defensive side in terms of coaching, hiring new defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon, who started to assemble his staff and continued with that this week. Since he was hired, Gannon has brought in Bobby Babich, formerly with Buffalo, Sam Seifkis, formerly with Arizona, and we've also seen a slew of defensive coaches head over to Miami to join Jeff Hafley for the Dolphins. So today we're going to break down two further coaching moves for the Green Bay Packers, one on defense and also one on offense. So if you want to stay in the loop with everything Green Bay Packers, I would highly suggest going down and hitting that subscribe button. From coaching changes, mock drafts, free agency, salary cap, and everything in between this offseason. You can find it all here on this channel. Definitely go down and click subscribe. All right, so first let's just dive down into the defensive hiring that happened a little bit earlier this week. The news came out a few days ago stating that the Packers are expected to hire 49ers defensive backs coach Daniel Bullocks. The former Nebraska and NFL defensive back worked for San Francisco for the last 9 seasons. Interviewed for the 49ers defensive coordinator job back in 2024. This is another massive hiring for the Green Bay Packers. When Jonathan Gannon was brought in, getting Bobby Babich on that coaching staff made that hiring even better. And now adding someone like Daniel Bullocks to this coaching staff. And I talked with a 49ers creator, Last Second Sports, Jesse, over on that channel, and asked him what his thoughts were of Daniel Bullocks. And he had nothing but good things to say about Bullocks, and he really wished the 49ers could have retained him and thought he even had a chance to become a defensive coordinator. So I think we're getting a very well-versed coach who now adds into that defensive backfield coaching room. And it seems like the Packers are heavily investing in experience in terms of coaching with the defensive backs. We know how good our safeties are with Xavier McKinney, Evan Williams, Javon Bullard, if you consider him that. The problem has been cornerbacks the past couple of seasons, and a lot could point to Brian Gutekunst not drafting a corner within the top 6 rounds, and coaches can only work with what they're given. But I think getting experienced coaches that have a lot of experience coaching defensive backs, such as Bobby Babich and now Daniel Bullocks, will make the best out of the roster and talent that the Packers have. Now, saying that, I hope Gutekunst goes out and either signs a veteran free agent, someone like Trey White, who played under Babich and he got the most out of him, or we simply draft multiple cornerbacks in this upcoming draft. I think there's a lot of good talent in this upcoming draft at cornerback, so you would assume the Packers would add nice needed depth to that room. Looking at Daniel Bullock's profile here, still a very young coach at 42 years old, and he actually played for our division rival, Detroit Lions. But as a coach, this is where his career really took off. We could see he started at Northern Iowa from 2012 to 2014 as a defensive backs coach, then Eastern Michigan in 2015 as a cornerback coach, then the Jacksonville Jaguars as an assistant defensive backs coach in 2016. Then he started his tenure with the San Francisco 49ers in 2017, where he remained at until just a few days ago. In 2017 to 2018, he was the assistant defensive backs coach, safeties coach from 2019 to 2022, then back to the defensive backs coach from 2023, then defensive passing game coordinator and defensive backs coach from 24 to 25, and now with the Green Bay Packers. Now, it says to be determined, because if I bring up the coaching staff, the current coaching staff right now at the Green Bay Packers, the sheet I kind of made here, we have Jonathan Gannon as defensive coordinator. We still have DeMarcus Covington, Vince Ogabasi. I could see maybe still leaving. We'll see. We've lost a couple other coaches along the way. Derek Ansley was let go. But when you look at Bobby Babich and what his title was, they gave him defensive backs coach and passing game coordinator. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, Daniel Bullocks just got hired as a defensive backs coach as well. The way that I think the Packers will handle this is they're going to split both coaches. So it's going to be one is coaching the safeties and one is coaching the cornerbacks. And I think this is an excellent way to go about it. Again, this isn't confirmed, but this is what I think they will do. And Daniel Bullocks has been a safeties coach plenty in his coaching career. Now, Babich hasn't specifically just been a cornerbacks coach. He's been a secondary coach for most of his career, where Bullocks actually was a cornerback coach, but at Eastern Michigan all the way back in 2015, I believe. I think the route they'll go is Bullocks will take care of the safeties and Babich will take care of the cornerbacks. Babich being the passing game coordinator, kind of the higher role there, really honing in on that cornerback room, and passing game coordinator, I think, could do wonders for that room. Before we get into the new coach hired to the offense earlier this morning, I want to give a huge shout out to Sleeper for being this year's channel sponsor. The Super Bowl is just a few days away, and if you want to make your picks for the upcoming game, Seahawks versus Patriots, you can do so on Sleeper while getting a free $20 play, no deposit needed, by clicking the link down below. If you do decide to make a deposit, first off, I appreciate it. It supports the channel a ton. But you can also get a 100% match up to $100. Again, you can choose higher or lower on a specific stat or touchdown, reception, yards, anything in between over there on Sleeper for the upcoming Super Bowl game to make the game a little bit more enjoyable to watch. Remember to always gamble responsibly, but if you do, go check out Sleeper with the link down below. All right, so now into the hiring that we saw happen this morning, and this one also intrigues me. I think the Packers are doing a great job at bringing in new, fresh positional coaches. The Packers are hiring Penn State's Noah Pauley as wide receivers coach. Rising star who interviewed for the 49ers offensive coordinator job last year, has developed future top 3 round draft picks like Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, and current Packer Christian Watson. This is another coaching hire that really excites me. I thought the Packers needed to upgrade at the wide receiver coach position. I just didn't think Ryan Mahaffey was cutting it, and the Packers didn't fire Mahaffey. Sean Mannion actually brought him over to Philly, so the Packers had to replace that open coaching spot, but I think they definitely got an upgrade here. I think it's absolutely monumental that Noah Pauley was Christian Watson's wide receiver coach. Watson is on the last year of his deal heading into 2026. I think he'll get extended before 2026, but he enters this next season as a clear-cut wide receiver number 1 and now gets his college coach back that helped him get drafted all the way at the top of the second round, coming out of a lower school that typically doesn't have high draft picks. So that much is so intriguing. You can see Pauley's coaching career here. Started in 2011 at Minnesota Duluth as a student assistant, then upgraded to a graduate assistant, then a offensive coordinator and wide receivers coach from 2016 to 2018. Then we see that North Dakota State wide receivers coach from 2019 to 2022, where he coached Christian Watson. Then moved to Iowa State for the wide receivers coach. Then the passing game coordinator and wide receivers coach from 24 to 25, and most recently was with Penn State for 1 season as their wide receivers coach, and now for the first time makes his move up to the NFL with the Green Bay Packers. I just always felt like the wide receivers, and we have so much talent in that room, and this is why it was so confusing to me, why we didn't make a move sooner than this, like after last season, after all the drops 2 seasons ago. The drops weren't as much of a problem this year, but I feel like they still happened more than they should have. You know, we saw Jaden Reed with some drop issues yet again, Wicks with some, not as bad as it used to be, Romeo Doubs with a pretty big drop issue this year, and it seemed like other receivers, younger receivers, and again, this is all speculation, but weren't getting coached up to the fullest extent. We saw Matthew Golden and some reports that he wasn't really catching on to the scheme too well, the route tree too well. Now that does fall back to coaching. Now it can fall back just on Matthew Golden as well if he's not really taking it in as well as he should be. But at the end of the day, it does fall back to coaching. And I think getting a new coach such as Noah Pauley in the room will really help build not only Christian Watson up to a higher level, but the other receivers on the roster. You know, Matthew Golden, really excited for him in year 2. Now that we get a new wide receivers coach that has proven to get guys drafted in early rounds, such as Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, and more importantly, Christian Watson, is absolutely massive for this offense. Now, some other coaching updates. We saw Brian Gutekunst have his press conference yesterday. We kind of got the update that confirmed that Rich Bisaccia will be remaining as the Packers special teams coordinator. Gutekunst said, quote, "I have a lot of faith in Rich and what we are doing there." So probably not the answer a lot of people wanted. I think a lot of people wanted Rich Bisaccia gone. I'm kind of on the fence with it. I think I would lean towards the Packers making a move there. But at the end of the day, the Packers simply don't invest in special teams, at least in the return game, like other teams do. Now, they do invest in some, core special teams players, Aaron Mosby, Zane Anderson, Nick Neiman. They did do that. But the Packers simply don't play as many starters on special teams as other teams that have great special teams units. So it's not necessarily the coach. I think the coach does have a lot to do with it, all the penalties and all that. That's got to get cleaned up, and that's kind of why I was on the side of, okay, let's get rid of Rich Bisaccia. but he can only work with what he's given. He can't say, hey, I want to play all these starters on special teams to make this unit better. Matt LaFleur, Brian Gutekunst, they're going to shut this down. And this has been a problem for the Packers farther back than Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst. This has just kind of been how the team has ran over the last couple of decades. Not really investing too much, not really using their top tier talent in special teams. Now, it's gotten better over the years. You see players like Xavier McKinney and some other players sometimes playing special teams, but it needs to get better. And this unit can't consistently being as bad as it is if you expect the Packers to go far in the playoffs and potentially win a Super Bowl. So I could see why everyone's upset that the Packers are keeping Rich Bisaccia. But I think as a human, as a coach, as a mentor, as team morale, he is a good coach. I just think this special teams unit isn't invested in, and it's going to inevitably look bad every year, regardless of who's there at coach, if it continues this way. Another update we got that's not necessarily Packers related, but would be something that I think we would all be on board for, is that Jeff Stoutland, the longtime Eagles offensive line coach, some would consider him the best offensive line coach in the NFL, one of the best offensive line coaches of all time, is leaving the Eagles. And Sean Mannion will have to bring in his own offensive line coach. He's stepping down. It says he will stay around the organization, but early reports are that Nick Sirianni kind of forced Jeff Stoutland out of Philadelphia for whatever reason. If the Packers could somehow get Stoutland, pay him whatever he wants, honestly, give him whatever he wants to replace Luke Butkus. I mean, this offseason in terms of coach turnaround would be an A+. If they could not only do what they've done so far with Gannon, Babich, Bullocks, among all the other coaches, Paulie at wide receivers coach, if they can get Jeff Stoutland in here as the offensive line coach, man, it has been an A+ coaching turnaround, coaching staff turnarounds offseason if they can somehow manage this. If you weren't aware of Stoutland's game and what he's produced at Philadelphia, just to give you an idea, over his 13-year career, he's produced 26 Pro Bowl selections, 14 All-Pro selections, and 2-time Super Bowl champs. Again, the Packers over the last couple of decades were known for their great offensive line play, and it suffered the past 2 seasons, primarily this past season. And I think they need to make a change. I think we all agree. I think a lot of us want Luke Butkus gone, even more so than someone like Adam Stenavich, who I think gets a lot of heat, but I think Luke Butkus deserves the heat he's getting. And if they could somehow replace him with Jeff Stoutland, it would be home run hire. So those are all the coaching hirings and updates. Hirings, one on defense, one on offense that we have for you today in today's show. I think there'll be some more coming. Maybe offensive line coach turnaround, potentially. I think they still need a defensive quality control coach, maybe some other coaches to round some things out, other ones that may end up leaving or get fired. We'll see, but it should be finalized in the coming weeks. But I really appreciate you guys coming by to the video. If you did enjoy it, please leave a like down below. It helps support